Hey, welcome to Practical Music Theory. In this video, we're going to really demystify and talk about the circle of fifths. Now, I know a lot of people in their beginning theory classes really don't understand or maybe don't see the value or really don't like the circle of fifths because maybe it feels hard to memorize or hard to understand why this actually matters. And hopefully in this video, we'll talk a little bit about how to build it, why it matters, and how it works. The first thing we need to talk about before we can make sense of how any of this works is the order of sharps and flats, because as we go rightwards around the circle, we're adding sharps to the key signatures. This key signature, the first one, has 1 sharp, then 2 sharps, 3 sharps, 4 sharps, 5 sharps, 6 sharps, 7 sharps. But as we go leftward around the circle, instead of adding sharps, we're taking away sharps or adding flats. So let's talk about the order of sharps and flats. The order of sharps and flats, there are 7 of them, and they're always in the same order. And they are as follows. First is F sharp. If a key has 1 sharp, that 1 sharp is F sharp. Then is C sharp. Then is G sharp, then D, then A sharp, then E sharp, and lastly B sharp. Now, I do want you to pay special attention to E sharp, because if I go to E natural and I raise that by 1/2 step, I land on F natural. And similarly, I want you to pay attention to B sharp, because if I go to B natural and I raise that note by 1/2 step, I run into C natural. Great. Now, it might at first appear hard, like how do I memorize the order of sharps? And how I do it and how I was taught is to sort of come up with a mnemonic for it. And what I learned was fat cats get down and eat burritos. Fat cats get down and eat burritos. FCGDAEB. It's the order of sharps. And fortunately for us, the order of flats is just this, but backwards. And so it is BEADGCF. And the way that I remember that is bead, BEAD, and then GCF, or greatest common factor. And these are sort of just silly little things, but they really are just trying to get us to remember the order of sharps and the order of flats. Again, the order of sharps is FCGDAEB, fat cats get down and eat burritos, and the order of flats is BEADGCF, or bead, greatest common factor. Great, and we'll see how that plays a factor in keys momentarily. Awesome. So now we've got the hard stuff out of the way. Now we're on to the easy stuff. Let's look and think about the circle of fifths like a clock. Right here at noon, or at 12 o'clock, we have C major. And C major has 0 sharps and 0 flats. That means every note in C major is a natural note, or it's like white keys on a piano. Great. As we go to 1 o'clock, we add 1 sharp. Now, the question is, how do we know what key has 1 sharp? And what's great is the answer is actually in the name of the chart. Now, the chart is called the circle of fifths, and if we want to go to the next key over and add 1 sharp, we go a perfect fifth away. Really what that means is we go 5 notes away, starting on C. So, what is our key? It's going to be C, D, E, F, and 5 is G. So the key with 1 sharp is G major. Now, we do the exact same thing to go to the key that has 2 sharps. We go G, A, B, C, D. right? We're just sort of saying the musical alphabet. Okay, now to the key that has 3 sharps. Again, we start on D, D, E, F, G, A, and we land on A. Now remember, I said D, E, F, G, A, but it would have been more accurate to say D, E, F sharp, because F sharp is in the key signature, because D has 2 sharps, which means it has F sharp and C sharp. G, A. Great. Now we need to find the key that has 4 sharps. So I go A, B, C, D, E, and I land on E major. Great. Now I need to find the key that has 5, and again, I sort of just continue this, and I go E, F, G, A, B, and the answer is B major has 5 sharps. So I just write that in. Great. Only 2 more left. All right. Now the question is, what key has 6 sharps? So I start on B again. Here we go. B, C, D, E, F. Now, here's the tricky part, or here's your first real question. The note we landed on is F. But is this F major? No. Why? Because this key has 6 sharps. Does that key have an F sharp in it? Yes, because F sharp is the first sharp. And so this key that has 6 sharps is F sharp major, not F major. Awesome. And then similarly, we're going to see a similar thing happen in the last key, which has every note being sharp. Right? So let's start on F sharp. F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B sharp, and we end on C sharp major. Perfect. And C sharp major is the key that has 7 sharps. Great. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look about what happens as we go on the other side of the circle. And I've just changed colors real quick, so it's a little bit easier to see. All right. Now, the circle of fifths has 2 names. The first name is the circle of fifths, which is, as we're adding sharps, we go up a perfect fifth, or 5-letter names, from C. But we could also call it the cycle of fourths, which means that if we're going left around the circle, we go up not 5 notes, but 4 notes. So let's take C as our starting point. C major has how many sharps or flats? 0. It has no sharps and it has no flats. Awesome. So now I need to go up 4 notes from C to find the first note that has or is the key signature with 1 flat. Great. Here we go. C is 1, D, E, F. Now, the question is that F natural, F sharp, F flat? And the answer is because we need to think about our order of sharps backwards, which only would have 1 B flat, that it would be F natural, because there's no F flat in F major. Then we need to look at our second key with flats, the key that has 2 flats. So we'll start on F, and we'll go up 4 now. F, G, A, B. Now, is that B flat? Is that B sharp? Is that B natural? The answer is, it is B flat. Why? Because this key has 2 flats, meaning it has B flat and E flat. Well, this is B, there's a B flat in the key, so I know that this key is not B natural, but B flat major. Great. And I do the same thing again for 3. Start on B flat and I go up 4. B, D, E, F. Excuse me, B, C, D, E. I knew that one thing was off there, but we landed on E. B, C, D, E. Now we run into the same question, which is this E natural? Is this E sharp? Is this E flat? Well, it's not E sharp because we're on the flat side of the circle, so there aren't any sharps. So we can rule that out. Now we can also rule out it's probably not E natural because on the sharp side of the circle there's E natural. Well, the third way we can rule it out is we can look at, is there an E flat in the key? And the answer is yes, because E flat is the second sharp, second flat. This has 3 flats, so we know this key is E flat major. Great. Now we're on to 4. And we do the same thing. E, F, G, A, right? And we run into, this is A flat, A sharp. This has 4 flats, and it is A flat, because A flat's the third flat. This has 4 flats. We know this is A flat major. Cool. Now we're going to talk a little bit about enharmonics, which actually allows us to cheat for a couple of these anyway. So here's the key with 5 flats. Here's the key with 6 flats. And here's the key with 7 flats. Great. Now, let's talk about the cheat way, which is enharmonics. C sharp is the same as something flat. Okay, what is it? It's the same as D flat. So I can do slash, meaning or, D flat. But let's just say I didn't know that. How do I get there? Well, I start on A and I go A, B, C, D flat. Now, what you'll notice is really every key on the flat side of the circle fifths except for F is a something flat key. So hopefully that's helpful. All right, let's keep going. F sharp major, or the key that has 6 sharps or 6 flats. And we'll talk about why that's important in just a second. Cool. So I can do this the cheat way, and I can say F sharp is what flat? And I run into F sharp is the same as G flat. Or if I'm on D, I can go D, E, F, G, and I run into G flat. And lastly, B, I can do the same thing. B is the same as what flat? And the answer is C flat. Now, I'd actually like to pick up really quickly on a little pattern to show you here. Now, let's look right here at D major. D major has 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp. Now, if I look on the circle, I'm going to see the same letter, but with a different accidental next to it. See, I have D major and D flat major. Now, ignore the amount of sharps and flats it have. We're just focused on the letter names. Now, if I go right 1 to D major, I run into A. But what you'll see here is if I go this way, right? If we're going left around the circle of fifths, we're adding flats, which means if we're going right, we're adding sharps. So as I add sharps from D major to D, and I add a sharp, I go to A major. Similarly, we can think as I subtract a flat or add a sharp from D to A, I'm doing the same thing. And let's look back at D. What happens when I go left of D? Well, I add a flat or I subtract a sharp, and we see the same thing where I go from D flat and I add a flat and I go to G flat. Right? What's next to G? C. What's next to G? C. Oh, what's next to A? E. Oh, I see an E. How about after that? B. How about after B? F sharp. How about, although it's F here, how about after that? C. C sharp, C. And so what we're seeing here is that just by getting half of the circle of fifths, we can not only understand the entire circle, but we can see how different keys are actually really closely related to each other. And that is another important reason why we memorize the circle of fifths, because it shows us how different keys are related to each other. in terms of two things. One, grouping of notes. So for example, what is the difference between C major, and I'll do that in green. What's the difference between C major? Well, it has no sharps or flats. And G major? Well, G major has one sharp. So all the notes are the same except for one note. Similarly, what's the difference between C major and F major? Well, everything's the same except for one note is different. That note now is B flat because B flat is the first flat. F major has one flat. All right. Now, how can I learn this quickly? Well, the best way I think you could learn this quickly is what I call a 1-minute drill. And really what you could do, just to practice it, is try and draw the entire circle of fifths as quickly as you can in under a minute. Now, one last thing that might help you do this just a little bit easier, which is, again, returning to that clock metaphor that I started with, which is, let's think about a clock. Now, C major is at 12 o'clock, meaning it has no sharps and no flats. I think about going right around the circle as it being 12 o'clock or 0 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. So what I do is I just memorize C major is at 12, F sharp is at 6. Now the other way I do it, just sort of draw a purple line. The other thing I think about is how can I divide the circle just one more way in half? And I run into E flat and A. And so if you could only memorize 4 keys, I would memorize what is at 12 o'clock, C major, what is at 6 o'clock, F sharp major or G flat major, what is at 3 o'clock on the sharp side, A major, and what is at 3 o'clock on the flat side. Now, to continue, what I think about on the flat side is similar how we're going from, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock on the sharp side. I sort of think about going 12 o'clock, negative 1 o'clock, negative 2, negative 3, right? Thinking about subtracting sharps or adding flats. And really what this is going to show you is just, again, how connected all the keys are. And that becomes important later when we're talking about harmony, how chords are related to key, how chords are related to each other, and so many more things. So please, please, please do memorize, do understand, and do realize the circle of fifths is important, but it's really not as hard as you might think.